Hey everyone, welcome to the Game-Based Learning Virtual Conference 2023. My name is Sufiz, and today I'll be talking about getting lucky with gamification. Before I jump into the topic, let me introduce myself. My name is Sufiz Muhammad Sufyan, or you just can call me Sufiz, because Sufyan is my father's name, and he wouldn't be joining us for this conference. And I'm a gamification and behavioral design consultant. I'm based in Malaysia, and I also run a consultancy firm with my partners called Rika Consult. And we've had the privilege of designing virtual and in-person gamified experiences for a mix of clients, including multinational clients, training providers, tech companies, startups, and so on and so forth. We've also been lucky enough to design international award-winning gamified solutions for our clients. So we unfortunately don't get most of these awards. It goes to our clients and partners, but we're really happy for them, and we're glad to be part of the design process. We have also designed products using gamification, also in marketing, learning, and employee engagement. And when I'm not a consultant or a designer, I also train participants and learners on gamification design and principles. I'm also a keynote speaker. Right. So now that's out of the way, let's jump right into the main part of this topic, which is what is luck and why do you want to use luck in gamification, right? So the first thing is, what is luck in gamification? So luck is a key element in many games. If you played any game, you know that most of these games tend to have some element of luck, some more than others. For example, if you played a game like Monopoly, or you played a video game and so on and so forth, you have had some sort of experience with luck, whether you were really unlucky or were really lucky. And I think we'll remember the unlucky moments more than the lucky ones, right? Especially when someone else is more lucky than us. And luck is a very common element used in games, and it can also be adopted in gamification to create suspense, unpredictability, and engagement for players and users alike, right? So you'd find luck typically in maybe games that you typically find in casinos, for example, whether you're playing around blackjack and so on and so forth, or maybe even when you play board games, right? This I think is more common in American-based board games, which is fine. For example, like Monopoly and so on, because they tend to have a lot of emphasis on luck, whether it's rolling a dice and not knowing what you're gonna get and how many steps you can take, which tile you'll land on as a result of that, what card you'll draw when you land on chance, for example, when you play Monopoly. And when you play a game like that, luck becomes a very strong determining factor as to whether you'll win or not. For example, you don't know whether you're going to land on the property that you want to purchase, or you don't know if you're going to avoid landing on a property that belongs to another player that may require you to pay hefty amounts of rent that could kind of bankrupt you a lot faster in the game. And I'm sure we're all familiar with Monopoly at this point. And also video games. Video games tend to use luck quite a bit, whether you're lucky enough to earn a rare item that could be very instrumental in beating a very difficult boss, or collecting enough resources, or being able to find certain things, or even finding Easter eggs in the game that could be very fun and useful to complete the experience, right? So luck comes in all shapes and sizes, and it's very common to find them in all kinds of forms of games and also in gamification. So what kinds of luck can you find? The first one would be random events. So these are events that kind of occur without any real reason, right? It could be something like finding a power-up in a random location in an experience, or suddenly something changes in the game environment, whether it's the weather, or suddenly it becomes more dangerous, it becomes safer, it becomes totally something unrelated. It could be anything. And some games really capitalize on this to make it more dynamic, right? And these random events can also make it really unpredictable to assume what's going to happen next. And that it may even want you to explore certain things more because you don't know what you're going to get. And that suspense could be really interesting. The next one is randomized outcomes. Like we've explained earlier with rolling a dice, when you roll a dice, for example, you don't know what you're going to get. There is no strategy, at least to my knowledge, to always roll a 6, right? Or if you're using a different sided die, whether it's 10-sided die, it could be a different amount. But all these numbers are random because you don't know what you're going to get. There is no real strategy behind this. You just roll and pray And maybe you blow on the dice, you shake it extra hard, and then you roll it in the corner of the box or something. That's what I typically do, and hope for the best. And that's all we can do. There's no real control. And these randomized outcomes are commonly used in board games, especially. Or even when you spin a wheel, and you don't know whether you're gonna get a prize or what kind of prize you're gonna get, or you're gonna get punished or a penalty, and so on and so forth. These are all randomized in nature. The last one is probability-based systems. So this is more about percentages, right? So for example, a system that involves probabilities such as chances to find something rare or something that may happen, or the likelihood of this event or instance happening could be different depending on the percentage. For example, maybe opening a chest in a game gives you a 10% chance of finding something rare, but a 90% chance of finding something common, right? Or something that's very, not so useful. And this basically means that for every 10 chests that you open, you probably get one rare item. So there is a bit more strategy involved, a bit more possibility, but it's still randomized in nature, because even you can still be really unlucky and get nothing after attempting 10 times, even though you have a 10% chance, because that's just how probability works at the end of the day, right? If you're unlucky, you're unlucky. But these are the three different kinds of luck you typically find in both games and also in gamification, right? And they can be used for different things. Maybe when you go into an experience, you want to make it dynamic and always fresh. Then you can always randomize the events that happen inside it, right? It could be something bad that happens, something good, something neutral. And because you don't know what to expect, you just always have that sense of anticipation when you come into it. And when you want to attempt something, you can always use randomized outcomes, because you don't know whether you're going to get a good result or not when, say, you roll a dice, or even when you could just be pressing a button, or when you fight something or you try to attempt a challenge, you don't know whether the challenge could be difficult or not, right? And the outcomes you get could be randomized as well. And last is also, again, back to probability. So when you add probabilities to certain things, and also players are aware of these probabilities, maybe they're more willing to try certain things, because they know that the more attempts they make, the chances of them getting something could be higher, even though that it still boils down to luck, right? So let's move on. So then it sounds like there's a lot of pros to using luck in gamification, right? So when you play a game with luck, it's always great when you're lucky, right? And that always makes you feel really happy, really like, you're on top of the world, you can take on anything. And let's kind of dive into this feeling when, especially the pros of using luck in games and gamification. The first is that it always surprises and delights users, right? Because you don't know what to expect. There is always this element of unpredictability and excitement when you go into an experience where luck is used, right? And it could be, for example, surprising a player with a reward, right? You don't know, suddenly out of nowhere, you get a reward for maybe little to no effort. And that could be a great experience. Or maybe we're lucky enough to achieve a goal unexpectedly. And this could be really, really powerful motivators, right? Especially when you factor in an experience where you may be a new player, you're not so skilled yet, you're still learning the ropes, but then you were lucky enough to win something, a reward, or lucky enough to overcome a challenge with little to no effort, just because the way of the experience was designed. And this could motivate you to kind of play longer and more often, because you know what? That's a great feeling to associate with the experience, right? The surprise and delight. Who doesn't want to be surprised every once in a while? Imagine walking into a game, even though you've played it for many times, walking around an experience or just going into this gamified experience and finding something valuable for no reason could be really nice to spice things up, to make things interesting, right? So it doesn't feel like, oh, I know what to expect. It always becomes a new experience, or something fresh at least, right? With every playthrough. The next one is that it empowers and engages users, right? When you give players unexpected opportunities to succeed, it makes them feel like they have a chance to win. Their chances of winning, overcoming challenges in the experience becomes more, the possibilities become a lot higher. And they feel like, you know what, I can do it. It's not so difficult. I don't have to be so afraid, because when you want to, say, attempt a difficult challenge or overcome a very difficult boss, it can be very daunting, especially if maybe you're not so confident, or you've had some bad, experiences in the past, or maybe you were just new to the experience, you're still not used to certain controls, or you're still learning certain techniques and stuff like that. So when you incorporate luck, you can give them different ways to kind of have opportunities to succeed, right? And this could be done unexpectedly, all through something called a lucky break. So when you get a lucky break, it'll be a really good boost in your morale, right? Because suddenly, like, you know what? I got really lucky. Let's go all the way. Let's get this done. Let's try our best. And it empowers players to continue playing and striving to achieve their goals. So when something felt impossible or really difficult before, because they were lucky, for example, they could have found something very valuable or very powerful, like a tool or a resource, or maybe they were given extra time to accomplish something, and so on and so forth. This could be something that they felt would be useful or will be the determining factor to achieving certain difficult challenges or goals that they felt otherwise before, right? So what seemed impossible then, back then, could feel possible now because of this one lucky break. And it also creates an element of suspense, right? Because you don't know what to expect. You're always engaged in paying attention, really focused to seeing like, okay, what's going to happen? What am I going to get? Are we going to be lucky? Are we going to be unlucky? Is it going to be bad? Is it going to be good? And this makes you want to wait for the next lucky opportunity to arise, right? Because if you were lucky once, or you've heard about someone being lucky in your experience, when you are lucky, you always tell the story to somebody else who has also played the game or experience. You will say, look, I got really lucky. I found this, I got that. And with that sort of information, when you go into the experience, you would also anticipate getting that same luck at some point. So every move you make or every action you take, you feel like, you know what, maybe I'll get lucky this time, right? And this keeps you engaged and really glued to the experience. And this also creates anticipation and excitement. And because when you do get the lucky break, it becomes a great boost in your emotions. You get all this endorphin. It's great, it's amazing. It's like, oh, you feel like you're on top of the world. And this can be quite addicting because you associate this positive emotion with this game. And every time you feel that you need a boost in your, morale, you want to feel better about yourself, you come back to the experience because you associate that really good emotion with that experience, right? And this makes players constantly want to play over and over again. So even though you have played something for so long, but because you have a chance to feel lucky and feel really good about yourself, you're willing to come back to the experience and replay or go through this thing over and over again, right? The next one is replayability, right? So even though you've played something over and over again, because of how luck is changes and makes the experience dynamic, it doesn't feel boring. It feels like every time you step into the experience, there is something new or something different that you can kind of expect to see or experience. So it creates a sense of unpredictability and variability because you don't know what's going to happen. It gives you that sense of there is a lot of things that can go right or wrong or a mix of both. And because you don't know what to expect, it always feels fresh and exciting with every playthrough, right? You could have a really good experience today. You could have a bad one tomorrow, but then it could be a great experience or an even better experience the next time, and so on and so forth. And this keeps you coming back because, again, you want to get that kind of positive emotion from this playthrough, right? So even though you maybe are unlucky at times, because you remember there was one moment or the multiple moments in time where you were lucky, you were more likely to come back to hopefully relive that experience once more, right? And sometimes you could even design it to be intentionally where they have to replay a certain thing or task or part of the experience over and over again so that they can get the desired outcome. So for example, maybe pressing a button or even like rolling a dice in this case, right? Rolling a dice, there are 6 possibilities typically. And because every time you roll it, you'll get a different outcome, you don't know what you're going to get. So if your goal is to get a 4 or a 6 or whatever, you'll probably try and roll this dice multiple times until you get that desired number, right? And once you do, then you are able to move forward or achieve something you wanted to achieve from the experience. And lastly, is that it encourages players to try different strategies and approaches, right? Because when you are able to come back to the experience and try, and you always feel that there's always something different to get from it, you're willing to try different things as well, because the more varied your approach and strategies are in the experience, the more likely the results you get will also be different at the same time, right? So for example, maybe pressing a button this way or doing something in a different manner will give you a different result. And if you're lucky, you will always get something positive in the experience. So all these things combined makes it feel like the same experience or the same game or gamified environment could give you a different sort of outcome each time you play, which always makes it feel like it's not boring, it's always new, and I can come back to this every day or multiple times in a day without even feeling bored. Right. And the last one is leveling the playing field. So if you're a new player, it can be very daunting, especially when you are up against more experienced or veteran players who maybe uh, have won the experience. They may even have the skill set. They may have even the more equipment or more benefits and advantages because of the benefits or they would have from playing more often or for longer periods of time. But by having luck incorporated into experience, you give newer, less skilled players an equal opportunity to succeed. Because if they would had a lucky break, that could be enough to overcome something that would otherwise be difficult for them at their current skill level, right? Or if they were to come face to face with someone more skilled than they are, if they were lucky enough, they could still beat the other player or come up at least the victors, or maybe at the very least they will lose a lot less painfully, right? For example, so giving players the opportunity to achieve a lucky break gives them the ability to kind of be on equal footing with these more skilled players, right? And they don't feel so far behind because they know that, look, even though I'm still new, that I still don't have a lot of things, luck might be on my side today. And that could be enough to keep me going. And because imagine coming to an experience as a newbie or a noob or whatever, and you just get totally destroyed by skilled players. They bully you, they kind of outclass you in every way. It can be very demotivating. And then you feel like, you know what, maybe it's not worth my effort. And then it becomes and you kind of end up with a situation where it becomes hard to get new players to join the experience. And you're left with these veteran players who eventually will get bored because they do not see new players coming into the experience as well, right? So you want to make sure that by using luck, you're able to level the playing field to make it fair and easier for these new players to come in, right? So that way they are motivated throughout and they feel that there is a sense of fairness and inclusivity for the experience. They don't feel like, you know what, this game or this gamified environment is only designed to reward the ones who have been playing for longer. They don't have anything for us new players, right? Or the less skilled players. You want to make sure that there's something for everybody, regardless of their skill level or experience level, so that they are motivated throughout regardless, right? And it also creates a sense of unpredictability that can make even difficult for skilled players to dominate the game, right? So if, for example, certain things, maybe challenges or competition still relies on some element or some degree of luck, right? This makes it even difficult for skilled players to win because they know that even though they're skilled, they're really experienced, there are certain things that are beyond their control, which gives newer or less skilled players still a chance to shine in the competition, right? So balancing this, of course, is really important because if you rely too much on luck, then it becomes a point where skill becomes pointless. So we'll talk about this a little more later on, but this is something that you want to be aware of. But at the same time, luck is able to still give the little guy a bit of a bit of an advantage when they really probably need it more than the skilled players do anyway. Right, so we've talked about the good things about luck, and there's a lot of good things to look forward to when you have luck in a game or gamified environment. But at the same time, there's a lot of bad things that can also come along with it, right? And if you've played a game, which I'm pretty sure you guys have, any game of the fact, if you have been unlucky, it's really painful, right? You do not, you will definitely remember a lucky moment in a game, but you will never forget an unlucky moment that you've had, right? Especially when you've had friends or other competitors rubbing it in your face, every once in a while. It's something that we've all had to experience at some point in our lives, especially if you're a gamer or you play games a lot or whatever it may be, right? So yeah, we know this fact, being unlucky is really not fun at all, right? It's painful. It's just unbearable at times, right? It makes you want to give up at times, and being unlucky makes you feel like you have no control, right? And humans, we do not like not having some level of control. It makes us feel safe. It makes us feel that we know that putting in certain amount of effort or doing certain things can give us a certain result that will make us satisfied. But when you do not have luck on your side, or the experience is designed in such a way where luck is pretty much the determining factor or the highest determining factor in deciding whether you succeed or fail, if you become unlucky, you become very unlucky. And this lack of control makes you feel like that's the point. Like, what are you doing this for? And if you don't feel you have control over your success or your failures, it can be incredibly demotivating. And I don't think I have to explain this any further because, again, as I said earlier, we probably experienced this at some point of time. The next bit is it can feel really unfair, right? So going back to our example earlier with comparing skilled and unskilled players and also new and more experienced players, if you have been playing the game or you've been part of this game for experience for much longer, you probably put in a lot of time. You probably build up your skill set. You probably build up your knowledge and things like that. Maybe even done your research at some point. But despite all this effort and all this time you've committed, if you still lose or get an undesired outcome because you were unlucky, it can feel really, really unfair, right? And it makes it feel like all that effort and time you put in is just arbitrary. It's meaningless. So what's the point, right? And this could be very demotivating once again. And it could even make you drop out of the experience. Like, you know what? I'm going to quit. I'm not going to play anymore because what's the point? It doesn't matter how hard I try, how much effort I put in. If you're unlucky, you're unlucky, right? And, that's not what you signed up for. Sure, it's great when you're lucky, but when you're unlucky, it could be, not so great. And you also can also lead to loss aversion, right? We don't like to lose. Losing is not fun. Well, I guess when you lose within certain conditions, it could be acceptable. It could be a great learning experience, right? But when you lose because you're unlucky, there's nothing much to learn from it, right? It could just tell you the message you get instead is that, you know what, you lost because you're unlucky. So luck is all up, like success is all about luck, which is not the message you want to convey, especially in a learning environment, right? And players may feel like they have wasted their time and effort. And again, it's discouraging and demotivating. So when nobody likes to lose, and if you know that you come into the experience only to expect to lose because you are unlucky, then you probably won't come into the experience at all, right? And because there's nothing to learn from it either, there's nothing to gain from losing. As designers, when we design a gamified experience and we add difficulties and challenges, it's always with the intention of teaching people something. But when luck becomes such a strong factor in deciding whether you win or not, or overcome the challenge or not, then it defeats the purpose. You don't learn anything. It sends the wrong message, basically, right? And when you get really unlucky, or maybe you're not so patient, or maybe you've had a rough day, whatever it may be, right? It could lead to a negative emotion. And this is very understandable. It could be very frustrating when you lose, especially when you lose when you've done everything else right, but because of one unlucky moment, you lose everything. It could be imagining losing all your progress, or you lose all your resources or whatnot just because of something that you have no control over. And that could be very, very painful. And it makes you angry, it makes you disappointed, it could even make you sad. People even cry over games at times, and it's an understandable emotion. And I'm not saying crying because the story is sad. It's crying because, you feel so defeated. You feel even cheated by the game. You feel like the game is against you for no reason, right? And all these things really makes the experience very unpleasant, right? And again, it's only great when you're lucky, but when you're not, again, and you can't control how lucky you can be in the experience sometimes, you could just have a stroke of bad luck throughout the whole time you play. So if you play 10 times, if every single of those 10 times were all unlucky for you, then you probably will never come back. In fact, you probably won't even reach to the 10th time. Maybe you stop at the second or third time. Who knows, right? Depends on how unlucky you were and how painful it was to be unlucky in that experience. And depending on how the experience was also designed, more luck doesn't always equate to more effort doesn't always equate to more luck, right? So just because you put in more time, more energy, you are smarter than somebody, you are more skilled, you're more talented, whatever it may be, just because you put in the effort or the hard work doesn't mean you'll get more lucky. And this could be very disappointing, right? Because then it becomes like, what's the point? And especially when you're trying to create a learning environment, this becomes something that defeats the learning purpose, right? Because the message, no matter what message you're trying to convey through your lessons, becomes lost. Because again, you want to reward your learners or your players or users for their effort, right? The more effort they put in, that means the more they learn. And failure becomes a tool to teach them so that they can learn from their mistakes, so that they can try harder to get better outcomes the next time. But again, if you remove the element of or the system where luck is driven by more effort, then it becomes pointless. And again, it can be very frustrating. Then what's the point? Why would you try hard? Imagine seeing somebody who doesn't even put in the effort win all the time just because they got really lucky. While you put in all the effort, you sacrifice your time and energy, but you lose every single time because you weren't lucky, which feels really unfair and really unbalanced. So does that mean you shouldn't use luck at all? It seems like luck has a lot of pros, but also a lot of cons. And the cons seem really, really painful. And it could result in you losing people, getting people disengaged from the experience and never coming back. So there's a lot at stake if you use luck the wrong way. So should you take a chance with luck? So it really depends on what you're trying to go for. If you want to add more replayability, more dynamics, more excitement and suspense to the experience, then you should consider using luck in your gamified environment. But of course, there is some things that you want to keep in mind when using luck so that you don't fall into the trap that we talked about earlier with all the cons. So you don't lose your players, you don't get frustrated, and you don't, again, if you're trying to teach them something, they don't blame their losses on being unlucky. Instead, you want them to realize that they lost because they didn't put in the right effort or they didn't put in the right mindset or strategy and so on and so forth. So what you want to do is you want to balance luck with skill and strategy, right? So when you have luck, it's fine as long as you know that skill and strategy can always overcome or match luck to some degree. So you, in that sense, can make your own luck by putting in the right effort, by developing your skill or having the right strategy. You're able to create your own luck because the way the environment is designed, it rewards both skill and strategy instead of just purely luck, right? So how do you do this? Some things to keep in mind. The first being setting really clear goals and objectives. This is pretty much a basic rule when it comes to designing a gamified experience. But by designing clear goals and objectives, including outlining what it means or what's required to achieve said goals and objectives, it allows players to then do their research and understand, okay, look, for me to achieve these goals/objectives, I can decide how I want to approach it, whether I want to use more skill. If I have the skill and strategy to spare, I can use that. But if I don't, maybe I can get lucky enough to still overcome and achieve those goals. So depending on the player, if they have enough skill and strategy, they know that, you know what, I could probably overcome this even though I'm unlucky because I'm capable enough, I'm skillful enough, I have the right strategy, I have the right knowledge, I have done my research and so on and so forth. With hard work, I will prevail. For maybe players who are not so skilled, not so strategic, they could choose to still attempt those challenges to achieve those goals and objectives because of luck. So maybe deciding, okay, I know I'm not that great. Maybe I have a long way to go, but I still want to try my best. Maybe I'll get lucky, right? So even if they lose, they know that, yeah, I wasn't lucky this time, but I know it wasn't just about luck. It's also because I've still a lot to learn. I've still a lot of skill to develop. I still need to work on my technique. I still need a better strategy and so on and so forth. So that the next time they come back, they know that they can attempt this again and expect a different outcome, not because of just luck, but because of things within their control, right? The next one is incorporating skill-based challenges. So this is a given, and this is something that we are probably very well versed in, is that incorporating challenges that require skills, right? So if you are skillful enough, you can overcome a challenge if you put in the right effort, you put in the right energy, you put in the right mindset, and so on and so forth. So even though you can still have elements of luck, by leaning more, or at least a little bit more on skill, it gives players a sense of control over their success and failure, right? So they know that if things go south, they know it's more to do with their skill rather than just their luck, right? And if they do succeed, they know that they can thank themselves for putting the effort, for building up their skill set and so on, rather than just being lucky, which allows you as a designer or the educator or the trainer or whatnot to use this instance as a learning opportunity to say, look, you succeeded because you did this right, or you failed because you did this wrong. So you should do this instead, or you should avoid doing that, and so on and so forth. So the learning becomes more true. You can also use randomization and chance more strategically, right? So to make this fair for all players, especially players who are newer, less skilled, you can use chance or luck in this case, in a way to make it balanced for them. So consider a player who is new to the experience. When they come in, there's a lot of things for them to learn. They don't know a lot of things they need to understand, and there could be a lot of things that feels very difficult or impossible at the time. By using randomization and luck for that early stage of their experience, it could be a great way to surprise and motivate them, right? So they don't know what to expect, but at the same time, they know that they can expect good things if they're lucky enough. But then as they become more experienced, become veterans of the experience, you tend to taper off on the luck and rely more on the skills and strategy once again, because that's where they are more equipped to handle challenges that require those skill sets or a strategic mindset rather than just luck. So for example, maybe at the beginning, luck plays a bigger role for a new player, but as they progress through the experience and they reach the end, luck becomes a smaller determining factor to success, and it becomes more about skill and about effort and whatnot, which again ties back to being a great way to teach them the right things. So at the beginning, you just give them a chance. So when you try something new for this first time, sometimes you just get lucky, right? You get results that were above your expectation because of luck, which is normal. But as you play the game, or as you spend more time in the experience, even or whether you put in a working context, spending more time in the industry, luck becomes less of a determining factor and more to do with your skill, your strategy, and so on and so forth, right? And when you provide feedback and learning opportunities at the right moments, you can also then encourage players to develop their skills and strategies rather than rely on luck to succeed, as we've explained earlier numerous times, right? So again, when you reward or you kind of rely on skill and strategy to overcome a challenge, then players feel like, okay, look, I need to work harder for this round. The last time I was lucky, but now I need to really beef up my skill. I need to really pay attention to the lessons. I really need to know my stuff so that I can be more equipped and more capable in overcoming this challenge or this obstacle, right? And luck becomes a smaller factor. So even if you have luck, it plays a smaller role in the experience. It could just give you an edge, but it doesn't mean it will make you successful in overcoming a challenge or obstacle. The last one is that you want to make sure you reward the right things. In this case, you want to reward effort and persistence. So even though you have luck in the experience, luck will not give you the biggest reward. Luck will give you enough to keep you going, to keep you interested, to keep it fresh. But the real rewards will come from true effort and persistence, right? And again, you want to make sure that you encourage desired behaviors in the experience. If you want them to learn something or display certain behaviors, whether it's to be more mindful or more strategic, more thoughtful, or more careful, or whatever it may be, whatever desired actions you want them to carry out, rewarding those actions when they do carry this, when these players carry those actions out, will be a great way to kind of reinforce those behaviors. And it will incentivize this place to keep playing and striving to keep improving themselves by displaying these actions more often, because they know that if I do A, I will get this reward, as opposed to if I do nothing, I will just be lucky enough to get this small reward instead, right? So those lucky moments will just give you enough to overcome the simple, small things, but not enough to overcome the difficult things that where skill and strategy would really, really, really matter, right? So that's how you should consider using luck and how you should balance luck using skill and strategy in the design experience. In the gamified experience through design. So that brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. So I'd like to end with a quote. It's hard to detect good luck. It looks so much like something you've earned. So if you design a gamified environment experience and you use luck the right way without relying too much on it, without it being the biggest factor to winning or overcoming challenges, it will always, the moment you feel you do get luck, it always feels like it was earned, not because you were just lucky, right? If that makes any sense. So thank you so much for your time. If you would like to reach out to me, if you have any questions, or you just want to, catch up, or you want to just have a conversation, my email is here, so you can reach out to me at sufis@ricaconsult.com, or you just connect me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active there. So you can search up my name, Sufis Sufyan. I'm fairly easy to find on LinkedIn. I don't think there are many Sufis Sufyans out there in the world. I've yet to find them. If you do know anybody, let me know. Or if you want to know more about our company, just visit our website, ricaconsult.com. Thank you so much for your time. I really hope you enjoyed the session, and do stick around for the rest of the conference. And I'm sure there are a lot of great speakers and topics out there you can learn from. And have a nice day. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye.